So guess what you can if this is. Well, clearly it's a Citroen. And yeah, you're right so far. The eagle-eyed of you have spotted it's a Citroen CX. But it's actually a Citroen CX two-door with a surfboard and a whale tail spoiler. Hi, my name's Simon from Lot 76 Cars, reporting today from the Brooklands Easter Classic Gathering. Some fantastic cars already arriving here today. Let's take a walk around the most interesting ones. So you couldn't get a much more eclectic mix than this. You've got a K10 Micra, that's a later car, facelifted car by the look of it, with the bigger bumpers. Hang on, getting run over by a Ferrari 512 there. What you've got to like about this event is, on one hand you might have a Bentley, and then next to it you've got a VW Beetle. Fantastic XK Jag. Try not to get run over by a lovely Interceptor. That'd be a hell of a way to go with 7 litres over the top of you, wouldn't it? Now that's a beauty. That's a 190. I'd like a 190 SL Mercedes. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? What a great colour combo. Followed by quite a rare XR4i. An Austin 7 getting tailgated by a Reliant. I think this is the Regal. It's the predecessor to the Kitten. Ah, that's a lovely little car, isn't it? First up we have a Bentley Continental. Now this is a 4-door version. I don't recall these being as popular as the 2-door. In fact, to be honest with you, I might have to do a bit more research on that one because I've not really seen a 4-door before. Next to it we've got a Sebring tribute car. This celebrates the 12-hour Sebring race where MGB's competed also in the Targa Florio race as well. It may well be a replica, but it looks very true to type. Love those fared in front lamps. I'm not sure what they do for the aero, but they certainly look good, don't they? Representing the 1966 Ford effort in Le Mans is this Ford GT40. It's certainly very period correct, even if it's a replica vehicle, isn't it? Fantastic looking car. Now it says a lot about me, sadly, that I can get excited about a Mark III Ford Granada. This one in actual fact is a Scorpio, so the Granada name was dropped in Europe for the Mark III Granadas, but it actually, the Scorpio name that they used was used in the UK for the top of the line version like this one. And it was one of the first volume production cars really to have ABS brakes. I think Mercedes S-Class truly had it the first, but this was the first volume car. So we've got a brace of Lotus Esprits here, and you can really see the differences, can't you? This is the Series 1 early car, 78 on an S registration with that lovely interior, and you can see the differences when we move. I think that's a Series 2 car, and you can see the differences on the bumper there. They're fantastic. This is the turbo version, so a fair bit of poke with it, and next to it a lovely Rover P6. Now who doesn't like a P6? What's that colour? Sanglow or something like that maybe? Now this glorious chunk of yellow loveliness is a Lotus Elan S4 SE. Now it's got in standard form something like 118 brake horsepower, 126 I think in the big valve version, but to be honest with you, it's so light and so small that it probably drives like a supercar. It's a lovely car, isn't it? Many of these were sold in kit form in the 60s, where the customers finished the car off and they could avoid a special purchase tax on the car and made them a fair bit cheaper. So this Fiat 500B, or more commonly known as Topolino, was restored by the owner during lockdown. So let's try and have a chat with him and find out how he managed to make this car so pristine. It's fantastic. I can't imagine parts supply is that easy. So I'm having a chat with Mike Hogarth, who's the owner of this fantastic Fiat 500B, or I think more commonly known as Topolino. Can you tell us a bit more about you've managed to restore it during lockdown?
That's right, yeah. I bought it in 2019 from Italy. Flew out to look at the car because I didn't really believe the advert. Got back in July 2019. It's supposed to be my retirement project, but I ended up, the bodywork was as it is now, but I've restored so I rebuilt the engine, gearbox, back axle and all suspension. And it's been on the road since 2021.
And you drove it here today? Did you
Yes,
drive,
I did.
Did you drive it far, or?
I come from Chertsey, so not too far.
Okay, but
Yeah.
nice to have a convertible. The weather's
Yeah,
come out to play as well, hasn't
absolutely.
it?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking to us
That's
about
all right,
it.
no
Thank you very
problem
much.
at all.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye bye. So this, believe it or not, is a Triumph Dolomite. It's a 1939, one of the last cars off the line before the receivers were appointed at Triumph, and I think subsequently Triumph merged with Standard Motor Company. It's fantastic, isn't it? Look at that sort of Art Deco style chrome. You're going to need plenty of metal polish on this one, aren't you? That's glorious. And just take a listen to Blackpool's finest rock, the TVR 450 SEAC. 1969 Lotus Cortina, less revered than the Mark I Cortinas, the Mark IIs, but nevertheless, this one could be yours. In fact, it's for sale. Also of note is this later Toyota MR2 midship runabout 2. It's E-plated, so what would that be? 87, 88 on the E-plate. It's a facelifted car, so obviously I think they've got a lot more colour coding than the original cars, but nevertheless true to the original styling. Now these Mark I Capris, particularly this 3000 GT, are, like many old Fords now, becoming extremely expensive. Nevertheless, the car you always promise yourself, as the advertising said, is a glorious example, isn't it? I don't think you're going to find so many MGT register vehicles together, but here's a few. I won't even attempt to go into these in detail, but you can see there's every shade under the sun. Well, even a yellow one, that's caught my eye. Absolutely fantastic. Now, who's going to be the first to mention Princess Anne? Okay, I promise not to mention it again. This is a 1977 Reliant Scimitar SE6A. Fantastic period colour combination. Love those original looking pressed number plates. Really a practical sports car. So it's a 4-seater, it's got some space in the back. You can see why they were really prized, and you can certainly see why, as a classic car today, they may well be a really practical option for some people. So I'm going to have a chat with David about this fantastic Scimitar GTE SE6A. How long have you had the car, David?
Since 1992.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah.
and you've done a lot of work to it, or that's quite a while.
Yes. It's a bit like grandfather's axe.
Or Trigger's broom, right?
Trigger's
okay,
broom,
yeah.
yes. But it's a matter of sort of keeping it up with well, modern cars as best you can.
It's the Essex 3-litre Essex
It's
V6.
the Essex V6 3-litre.
Right.
Overdrive in top.
And quite a practical car, aren't they? Because I think the combination of a hatch,
It was the
4
first
seats.
hatchback.
Oh, okay.
It was the first of the hatchbacks, and it's quite good. The back window hinges up to give you access to the boot,
Okay.
but getting big things in can be a bit of a struggle.
Okay, but more practical than MGB probably. I
Well,
think.
yes.
And there you have it. If you want a practical classic, maybe a Scimitar SE6A is the one for you. So here's a Sunbeam Alpine Roots group. As you all know, this one is badged as Le Mans, but we'll take a look round the back because I think it's got some sort of conversion on it. I'm not sure if this is what they referred to as a Harrington conversion, but it certainly makes the Sunbeam Alpine a lot more usable, doesn't it? Now, this lovely 1957 Austin A35 was built in recent years for racing, so you may well see this at Goodwood. It's been built by the owner, it's lovingly prepared. Quite a fair bit of work there. I think different ignition system for starters. Gotta love the colour combination. So this Series 1 E-Type, it's got the enclosed headlamps that the Series 1.5 and Series 2 onwards lost. Glorious kind green. It's not one of the very early cars because it's not what they call the flat floor, and I'll try and demonstrate what I mean by that in a second. So as we look underneath, we can see that the floor pan drops down slightly towards the front, and the reason is that the floor was lower. There was significant issues with passengers obviously having to have their feet higher up, passengers and drivers to have their feet higher up in the vehicle, so they actually dropped the floor. These early flat floor cars are quite prized now, although this isn't one of them in this case. So we've got a later E-Type. This is the fixed head, not the 2+2, which is taller, and it loses those fairings over the lights by this time. I think it's probably a series maybe Series 1.5 or Series 2. Then we've got a fantastic Moggy Minor van. Now, who doesn't like a Moggy Minor van? And next to it we've actually got a Moggy Minor pickup. That's a rare beast, isn't it? Now, Lotus Cortinas gets all the attention, but this is a lovely Mark I Cortina GT. I think these might have been the 1500 engine. I'm pretty sure these had the additional dials on the dashboard if it's an original car. Yes, it does. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the video, but it's absolutely glorious colour, isn't it? In some ways, I do prefer it. This is obviously a four-door, so it's a way bit more practical than the Lotus Cortina. So this is a lovely Rover P5. It's not the B standing for Buick, which came with the later 3.5 litre engine cars, but nevertheless it's a superb example, isn't it? You know what, I'm stumped with that one, and we're going to have a look over this side of Brooklands. We'll certainly have a look at that some of those old AA vans, and we'll see some classics. So stick with us. Lots more to come. So long before it was called the Fourth Emergency Service, here's an AA van, and it's an Escort Mark II. When did you last see an Escort Mark II van? It's relatively late, so it's a V, which would make it what, an 1980? That's in glorious condition. I'm presuming it's an original one. So we've got a Mazda 626. What makes this car rare? It's in GT trim, but it's also got the four-wheel steering. So this is a Jensen 541. It's a 1955 car, but it was actually laid up since 1977 before the current owners restored it. It's got the 4-litre Austin engine, and it's certainly got, I probably mentioned before in some of my videos, some real innovative features like the Perspex windows, which were pretty unusual at the time. And that grille can be opened from inside the car, or closed indeed, for improved heating or cooling, depending what the temperature's like outside. Just 5,200 of these Elan Plus 2s were made. This one's unusual in that the owner has uprated it using things like Cosworth brakes and a later Ford Z-Tech engine, a 16 valve engine, so I bet it goes a bit, but fortunately it's been done in such a way that it's quite sympathetic, and externally at least, probably apart from those mini light wheels, it looks pretty standard, but I bet it goes. Very nice Citroen Diane arriving. That's just purring along, isn't it? A couple of tiny twins here, little Fiat 500, next to its tiny brother or sister, a Mini Cooper. Now this is the Daimler SP250, as many of you know from previous videos, commonly referred to as the Dart incorrectly, a name that was never used due to litigation by Dodge. Fiberglass bodied, and it was the last car that Daimler made before the Jaguar organisation took over. That sounds pretty good. It looks like it's probably already burned up about £10 worth of fuel whilst it's been sat here on the queue. I hope they hurry up. So this is from the Standard Motor Company. Now the Standard Motor Company later actually took over ownership of Triumph, which went into receivership, but certainly the styling of this car echoes the American cars of the period. Now if we take a look around the back of it, legend has it that the designer of the vehicle was sent to design something with an American influence to certainly echo cars of that period, which were seen as being chic and dynamic and attractive to customers in the UK and other markets. And before the days of the internet, he was sent down to the American Embassy in London to actually sketch out some of the vehicles that those guys were using that had been imported from America, and hence the design of this has echoes of Plymouths of the same period apparently. Well, even if it's not correct, it's a good story, isn't it? This is nice, isn't it? It's a Toyota Tercel 4-wheel drive estate vehicle, sold by a Toyota GB back in the day. This one's what, an 87, 88 on an E. I've seen a few of them, but there are not many left in actual fact. And we've got another Toyota. This is a Supra. I think at this stage it was still called something like Celica Supra, but this is in glorious condition for an early car. I'm presuming it's a UK car. What would that be, C85, 86? So this beige colour beauty is a Mark IV Cortina. Now the Mark IV Cortinas didn't survive as well as the Mark Vs because the rust proofing allegedly wasn't very good. It wasn't great on cars of this period, full stop, but there's certainly more Mark V survived, not just because they're newer vehicles obviously as well. It's in lovely condition. This is a 1.6 GL as well. So Darren, I understand that Mark IV Cortinas have got a very low survival rate compared with Mark V Cortinas. So how did you come to acquire this one?
Literally, I picked this up about a year ago. It came up for sale, found it on Facebook, came up for sale in my hometown about 5 minutes down the road.
Right.
My old man bought his Red Crusader about 6 months beforehand.
Oh, so it's a family tradition, you got two Cortinas.
Family thing, it's all in the family. We've always loved old Fords, always.
Oh, excellent, fantastic. And have you done much to it? Have you had to do much to it?
Literally all I've done is put a bigger carb on it, and that is literally it.
Oh wow!
I like it with the little bits of rust on it, a little dent here and there. I like the character of it.
Well, it's not so you're not such a standard that you'd be afraid to park it anywhere, I guess.
Yeah,
this is a 1.6 then?
It is 1.6 GL.
So what sort of power output would this make as standard?
Actually sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, probably what, something like, I don't know, 70, 80 brake horsepower. And you're using it every day, or?
Yeah, only when it's nice weather. When the sun's out, it comes out.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for talking to us.
No
Thank
problem,
you.
mate. Cheers.
So the sun's really brought out some lovely cars. It's brought out this V-plated, what's that, an 80 Lotus Eclat, predecessor to the Excel. Ignore the BAC Tug there in the middle. Lovely Mark I Golf GTI. Next to an MGA that is apparently for sale. Now this Rolls-Royce Phantom 5 has got a fantastic provenance. It was actually owned by Sir Angus Ogilvy, and subsequent to that by Princess Alexandra. It then went to the US of A, then it came back again. Wow, what a history, and it's in absolutely superb order. It's not my regular type of classic vehicle, but I can certainly see the attraction. It's getting quite busy here now, so do bear with us. So we go from little, which is this Messerschmitt cabin cruiser, to large, which is this New Yorker. Chrysler New Yorker, in pink, no less. So this Juniper Green 4.2 litre Series 2 XJ, the owner Derek's going to have a chat with us about it. I love that colour, it's got that fantastic beige interior. We'll just get a few comments from Derek on how he came to get this car and what he's done to it. So I'm here with Derek, and he's going to tell me a little bit about this Series 2 XJ. XJ standing for Experimental Jaguar, as many of you probably know. Derek, tell us about the car,
Yeah,
please.
well, this particular car was made in '79. It went to Jersey until '91. It's only done, when I bought it, only done 26,000 miles. I've done just over 27,500 miles now, and I've done quite a bit of work on it, but the bodywork is pretty good. It's got brand new tyres, all new suspension, front and back, all new brakes, and the various other bits and bobs that I've done to it to keep it running nice. Still work to do because it's an old car.
Thanks,
really nice.
thanks for talking to us, Derek.
No,
Thank you
thanks
very
to
much.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Bye
thank
bye.
you.
So this beauty is one of the first of the Z cars with the doors that drop down into the side, built-in limited numbers. Even UK cars, of which a few are imported, are only left-hand drive. A fantastic sports car. I think it's got the 2.5 litre 6-cylinder engine in, but it's a glorious looking car, isn't it? Now there had to be a 190 in it, and this time for a change it isn't mine. So this is a 90 Mercedes W201 190E. It's the 2 litre car. So probably at this time the car was sold, there was the 190 with the carburettor, in fact the last carburettor car that Mercedes built, and the 190 that was this. Eventually the carburettor car was dropped in favour of a lower powered or slightly lower powered injection, which was the 1.8. Next to it, another bit of German engineering, we've got the unusual and relatively rare BMW 2002 Touring. A really usable little classic car, and again from an era when hatchbacks weren't really that popular. The Anglias are in force today. We've got the Anglia Saloon and also the Anglia van, and those of you might have seen an advertisement that Ford took out at the time to explain why after 7 years they dropped the Anglia and replaced it with the Escort. There was certainly a lot of love for the Anglia, and they had a pretty hard sell to do with the Escort at first. So we've got a TR4 next to a lovely Mark 3 or Series 3 I should say Jensen Interceptor. Of course an MGB. There are what, 10,000 of these on the road in the UK that survive. That's quite incredible, isn't it? A Bentley, a lightweight E-Type, and a Rolls-Royce Silver Spur. The list goes on. Some great cars still to see. So let's have a chat with the owner of this 1975 Bauer convertible BMW 2002. It's absolutely glorious, isn't it? Hang on a second, we'll catch up with him now. So I'm going to have a chat now with Mark, who's going to tell us about this lovely 1975 Bauer 2002 convertible. Mark, there can't be many of these cars actually around in the UK, can there?
They made about 200 right-hand drives altogether. Right. This is a 75, 76 model, so registered was first 75. So this has got the square lights rather than the round lights of the early 002s. So I reckon there are about 30 of these left on the road.
Wow, and it's the Bauer, so this was converted off the line when BMW built the car before they actually started to produce their own convertibles, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. In fact, if you go up onto the banking, there's a 3 Series Bauer.
Ah, okay, I'll go and have a look at that later, hope to catch that. And how long have you had the car, Mark?
Over 30 years.
Oh wow, okay. So it wasn't that old when you actually bought it, was it really?
I got it about 88, so it would have been over 10 years old.
And not that collectible at that stage probably, as it is
well,
now.
I sort of recognised it as a future classic.
Oh, well done you, yes,
there
exactly.
weren't many around, even in those days.
All right, smashing, Mark.
So,
thank you for talking to us, cheers.
Alright, thanks a lot.
Sold by both Porsche and Volkswagen is this 914. So this is the 914 4-cylinder. It's a left-hand drive car. It probably came from the States, I guess. And we've got this beautiful green 914 6-cylinder, 9146. That's got a great number plate as well, hasn't it? 914 VWP, that's lovely. And certainly worthy of a shout out is this early-ish 911. Do you know what? I'm probably going to look an idiot when I find out it's a 912 or something, but it's certainly a glorious looking car, isn't it? Now I'm reliably informed that it's a Spanish red 1965 Chrysler 300L with a 6.7 litre engine. Now the Capri name has been used by a number of cars, not only the Capri that we associate with this. This in fact is the Consul Capri, and it's a very lovely coupe. I've had a very short lifespan. You can see the American influence with the fins at the back and that rear styling. You wouldn't mistake it for anything else. Next to it we've got a later Scimitar GT. The reason I mention this, I think it's one of the Middlebridge cars when Reliant had passed over the production rights to the car, and of course a glorious Rover SD1. Not sure if it's a Vitesse, it might be, but it's certainly that Ferrari Daytona front styling is unmistakable, isn't it? It's hard to believe that the 30th anniversary of the Mini was already back in 1989, and they built these in black and burgundy, these Mini 30s, to celebrate this. So we're a bit in the flight path here at Brooklands today, and Magnum PI would be proud with this 308 GT or GTS. I haven't had a look. I must confess I might be proved wrong. Here was the 348. This car wasn't well received at the time. It's only now getting appreciated for what it is. At the end of the day, it's a Ferrari, and that's special enough. Next to it we've got a lovely Morgan, and then I think this Mini Cooper. I think Cooper because it's got those ventilated front steel wheels that you'll see there. I think that's in a white over surf blue. And this is a Maserati Indy America. Really handy supercar to have, a full 4-seater. What's the most appropriate vehicle for Sooty to drive? Well, it's this Bedford Rascal motorhome. Sooty wouldn't be seen in anything less. So although this might look like a Vauxhall Chevette, in actual fact it's an Opel Kadett, the car on which the Chevette was based. Now at one time both Vauxhall and Opel cars were sold from the same dealer network in the UK. I'm not sure if this is a UK car, whether they ever sold the two side by side, but it is right hand drive, so the only possible other avenue it could have come in is from South Africa. I can't see the owner to check that one, but if he's watching this then please pop it in the comments and satisfy my curiosity. Successor to the last Zephyr was the Granada. This is a Mark I Granada, this 74 car. It's a right hand drive car. It's got a great colour combination. I wonder if it's a South African car. It's got those beige, I'm not sure if they're leather, I suspect they're not leather guys, it might be a bit hot. It's got an interesting colour vinyl roof. So if you want to have a bit of fun chasing around West London saying get your trousers on, you're nicked, this is probably the car for you. So this is a relatively rare these days mini pickup. Like a lot of commercial vehicles, they were used and abused back in the day, and nobody really hung on to them, but the mini pickup stayed into production quite late with very few changes. You can see it keeps the standard metal grille of some of the early cars, and this one's a V registered, so it's from 1980. And I have to say, although it's not the be all and end all, they are worth huge amounts of money. Now, one of the fastest four-door saloons at the time, and actually very innovative, was this Triumph Dolomite. 16 valve engine giving it a top speed of 115 miles an hour. Now, unbelievably, this one registered on the 1st of October 77 is a one owner from new. So this is a Bristol 411 Series 3 built in 1972 with a 6.3 litre Chrysler engine. The performance is pretty sharp. I mean, it claims 140 miles an hour in 7 seconds to 60. The fuel consumption is described as mighty. I don't think that's an official term, but maybe that's the owner's experience. Now the wedge TVRs like this one are really attractive vehicles. This is a B, so what that make it, 84, 85 maybe. It's a 350i, it's not short of power. I'm pretty sure these had the Rover Buick derived engine in. Great looking cars, aren't they? I do like the style of that one, of course, the obligatory pop-up lamps. Let's try and have a look at this one from the back as well. Well, that's a lovely looking interior, isn't it? Replacing the Audax series Roots cars is this Arrow series car. So one of the brands that was used was Singer. This is a Singer Gazelle Mark 7, I believe, introduced in 1967 and pretty much most fitted with the 1725cc engine and automatic transmission, although I think later cars were offered as manuals with smaller engines as well. Another car that's unusual to find is this Vauxhall Viva HB. Now, pretty much rare to see these. They did suffer from Tim Wern problems. This is a 1970 car. Let's just have a look. Red with a black interior, and what a lovely black interior that is. Absolutely fantastic, isn't it? There's actually a fair bit of room there. It just shows how cars have got bigger, but interior space hasn't necessarily increased. What a glorious car. With its dog bone grille, so-called dog bone front grille, and 4 Cibi Oscars, what could it be? It's a Mark I Escort RS 2000. These are incredibly collectible and expensive cars, and there's 3 in a row. With a more standard car there, we might try and get a look at that if we can get close to it. Absolutely lovely. Love those stripes, those RS alloys. You can see why people really like these cars, can't you? Now, slightly less power but no less attractive is this 1300 GT that's had a lot of time and love tendered upon it. Okay, it might just have 1300 engine, but probably relatively small weight. And look at the state of that engine bay. That's absolutely glorious, isn't it? Credit to the owner for that. This time a Mark 1 flavoured Lotus Cortina. Now this time this is definitely a Chevette rather than the Cadet family member, and it's an R, so what would that be, a 77 car, and it's a two-door saloon. That must be pretty rare these days, I think. So this is one of 3 Sunbeam Alpine Tigers here. I mean, it's unusual to these 3 Sunbeam Alpines, but we've got a beautiful green one, we've got that yellow one, and I think even the black one's also a Tiger as well, with this one's got the hardtop on. Yes, it is. Now this is a glorious Zephyr 2-door convertible. I'm not sure if these were converted by Crayford. I can imagine them being hideously expensive back in the day because they weren't production line vehicles. Not sure if that's the case. Let's take a look inside, and just looking from the back, we can see it's got that lovely beige interior. It's quite a lot of space, isn't it? Now these W123 coupes, pillarless coupe, for me are one of the prettiest. This and the 124 coupe, they are stunning, stunning cars, aren't they? Yeah, they're very expensive these days. You might find a sort of basket case for £6,000 or £7,000. I've even seen these advertised recently at £50,000. But you can see why they're attractive. They've got that pillarless coupe styling, and I guess the longevity that the W123 had as a car, renowned for being incredibly reliable. What a pretty car. Slightly older one here, I think this is a W111. Just leaving. Now this Sprint Veloce 1.5 is on the, it says on the X plate. That would make it relatively late. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but it's a rare survivor. Look at the survival rate of these and Alpha Suds is extremely low, and it's such a pretty car. It's a pre-facelift car with the narrow bumpers and those lovely sundial type wheels on them. And this time we've found a 4-door Chevette. We saw the 2-door one a bit earlier, I think it was. This one looks relatively untouched and in daily use. Now elsewhere in the video you'll have seen the Bauer converted BMW 2002, the predecessor to this. This is the E12 BMW 3 Series, so I think the first 3 Series, it's got the Bauer convertible, so it's not the full convertible as the factory ones were. So obviously that structure helps it maintain quite a lot of the rigidity that would be missing from a full convertible. And this looks like it's one of the rarest of the Montegos, and this is a Montego Mayfair with that two-tone paint and those white coloured wheel caps. That's really of its time. What's a G? 8990, so it's probably quite a late one, I would have thought. And for Mercedes fans, a lovely 220 SE Fintail, right hand drive, so possibly a UK car, who knows these days. But certainly, again, I said this many times, of its time, and clearly the name Fintail is pretty well deserved. Now this Yorkshire registered 3-litre S Caprice certainly caught my eye. It's in immaculate condition. It's got those pressed metal number plates. It's got the tartan interior, I bet. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's got that lovely tartan interior. It's got the cassette player. Wow, just looks like it came off the set of The Professionals, doesn't it? And those fishnet head restraints. What a glorious, glorious car this one is. Let's try and get it from this angle as well. It's got the bonnet open. and it looks like they've done quite a lot of work to it. So the Renault 18 replaced the Renault 12. Now, it's unusual to see one of these cars these days, but this is a special version called the American. 1,500 cars were sold in the UK market. As I say, relatively rare to see these with this two-tone paint and special badging. Fans of a certain 60s TV series based in Portmeirion might recognise this as Transport Round the Village. It is a mini moke, campaigned by Jerry Marshall and I believe homologated for racing in touring cars is this Forenza, but it's the so-called droop snoot for obvious reasons. Next to it is a droop snoot estate version. I'm not sure if that was an option in the day or somebody's converted that car, but if you do know, check it out and please let me know in the notes. So this is unusual. It's a Rover P6, but it's an Estora. It's a 3500S, so it's a manual car, but with the estate conversion sold by a company called HR Owen. I think about 160 or so were converted, something like that, and probably there's in the UK maybe 20 or 30 of these left. So this Granada Mark II pre-facelift gears looks like it's been fitted with a 5-litre engine reminiscent of the ones that Basil Green Motors fitted in South Africa. Not an awful lot of room left. Oh, not too bad I suppose. Interior looks relatively standard to me, to be honest with you. I wonder if it is a South African car. Although it's badged as gear, and I think gear was just used in Europe because of the connection with Ford's ownership of the styling house gear at the time. So the owner of this Peo, this Nissan Peo, also owns this very special Escargot, and we'll talk about that shortly, and he owns this BE1. Now this is probably one of two cars in the UK. Pretty much they're all based originally on micro mechanicals, and they came out of the so-called Pike factory that Nissan had, producing these special projects back in the day. And as I say, the owner's got 3 of them, so we'll have a chat with him particularly about the Escargot van, because that really is a special one. So we're going to talk to Pete, who owns this very unusual Nissan Escargot behind me. Let me get that right. Now I did give you a clue, it's had an engine transplant, but it's you'll probably never guess what. Tell us more about it.
Well, it's an 89 Escargot, as you say, and had an asthmatic 1.5 3-speed auto engine as standard,
Right.
which wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding.
Right.
I had a go at turbo in that engine, which it didn't work. It was never going to work properly. It did work. It ran, but you know, there was no substance to it. So I decided to go a bit crazy. It's got the Audi TT conversion. It's got a 20-valve turbo engine from the
Okay,
later.
the 225?
Yeah, BAM engine.
Of course, yeah,
Probably.
225. Who wants the 180?
Exactly,
Yeah, of course,
no,
yeah.
so true. So it's got that, and essentially I ended up, the only way I could make it work with the whole platform, so it's got the whole subframe,
Wow.
and all the brakes from that, and the steering, even the immobiliser, everything. So it's on factory management with Revo Stage 1 software.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to have a look under the bonnet. So how you fit an Audi 20-valve turbo engine under the bonnet of one of
Wouldn't
these?
look too hard.
God only knows. Let's have a look.
Doesn't stand up to much scrutiny, I'm afraid.
Let's have a look, guys.
Yeah, it was just a project to keep me going over the last, done in the evenings, all on the floor at home. As I say, I mean, it's probably not the most beautiful conversion, but
So it's an
all in
Audi
there.
20-valve converter. It seems to fit all right, doesn't it?
To a point. I mean, I had to use the whole front platform. I mean, the track, as you can probably see, the tracks had to be widened.
Right.
So essentially, the turrets wouldn't really fit. So what I've done is I've actually welded in the turrets further forward.
Okay.
Further to,
And you've obviously got the strut base there, which
well, that
is
was the only way I could get the. That was the only way I could really successfully get the how wide to make it, by putting the strut base in, and then that gave me a datum point of where to actually mount everything. The rails I didn't need to widen at all. I just needed to fit the engine mounts and stuff like that. Couldn't make the intercooler work in the end. I've had to put it into a charge cooler. I just couldn't get the angles right on the loose pipes and stuff like that.
So
in the end it's running through a charge cooler.
you must surprise a few people at traffic lights with this.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. I mean, it doesn't come out very often, but it's a lot of fun. Do you know what?
So thanks for joining me on Lot 76 Cars at the Easter Classic gathering at the Brooklands Museum. Hope you've enjoyed some of the cars we've seen. Hope you've enjoyed the owner interviews. Please like, share, subscribe, press on notifications so you get notifications of future videos. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.